Well, thanks so much for joining us today, John. We're very excited to have you as our upcoming speaker coming up in July. As for those that don't know, this is John Lynch. He's the former VP of brand marketing at Reebok, where he spent about 19 years, a little over 19 years actually, in a variety of senior level marketing roles. John, welcome. We're glad to have you here. Maybe you can introduce yourself and maybe talk a little bit about your most recent role at Reebok.
Sure, Ken. Thanks. It's a real pleasure to join you as well, and I appreciate the opportunity. I actually did make it 22 plus years, believe it or not, because I know that's rare in this day and age. And I think the key for me for that was that two things. One is I always had fun, and I got to do a lot of different things. So it wasn't 22 years of doing the same thing over and over again. And I think that's kind of the magic in terms of getting some longevity in a career. The most recent experience I had was vice president of brand marketing, and I got to work on our partnerships, which I did a few different times in my career, which were, partnerships ranging from Cardi B to fitness trainers, great Peloton instructors like Jess Sims and others, as well as all of the strategic aspects of our marketing, including our media, our influencers, which is a ton of fun, the whole operational side of moving to an in-house agency and production and all of that. And I had an awful lot of fun doing that role.
That's great. That's great. Well, I know we're going to talk more in depth at the actual event in July about this, but 22 years ago, influencers was meant a very different thing, right? That wasn't even part of the marketing responsibility. Never mind, having someone dedicated to it. Maybe you can talk just a little bit about, kind of the evolution of marketing or kind of where you've seen things change over those 22 years.
Yeah, I think that there's some things that are like so vastly different, and then there's some things that are so fundamentally the same, right? And I think there's a bit of both, right? I think I don't think we really knew what a funnel was 22 years ago, a marketing funnel, or at least if we knew what a funnel was, it had a totally different connotation. But I think that in the focus on driving retention of customers and the whole digital aspect of it was, of course, hugely different. But some of the principles of validating your product with maybe if it's a sports product, with somebody that wears it on field or on court or those kinds of things, those things have stayed true throughout that time. I think connecting on an emotional level has stayed the same over time. So there's certainly, I think, some fundamentals that are radically different because the means of reaching consumers is different and how you do that. But I think creating that connection to a consumer and listening to a consumer what they want is still the same.
Yeah, that's a really good point. There are so many changes, and marketing is one of those roles where it does seem to change, probably more frequently than most roles within a company, right? Because trends change, buying habits change, even outside of the apparel and shoe industry, but it's still very, very true. And like you said, demand planning has changed a lot. The focus around the funnel, what that means, and then with COVID, everything switched up because no company was able to rely on leads coming in from events and conferences and sponsorships. And that switched up the whole game, 2 years ago.
Yeah, I think with COVID, I think the way we thought about it, at least at Reebok, was we probably accelerated 3 years of digital learning into 1 year, right? So we came out of 2020 into the beginning part of 21, where we might have, without COVID, we might have been more like taken us till 23 to get there, with the whole emphasis. So there was sort of this acceleration. There was acceleration, of course, digitally. You could just look up and down your street and see the Amazon trucks there for everybody, and that hasn't changed. And there was this acceleration of work from home that's changed, that was probably already on that path, but just step functioned forward so much. So things have changed quite a bit.
Definitely. Well, and again, 22 years ago, really kind of the buildup overseas in Asia markets, especially in terms of supply chain, that was just kind of starting to take hold 22 years ago, right? Fast forward to today, And now a lot of companies are trying to figure out how do we unwind some of that over reliance on overseas suppliers and supply chain issues that have come up also because of COVID, but also because just, huge demand coming in all at the same time.
Yeah, and I think it's an area that I got to work on a little bit. Probably not my main expertise, but the area of actually producing locally and automated production. So shoe and apparel there's a lot of people sewing and doing things like that. But this whole notion of how can you automate the production and therefore have a factory in Germany, a factory in Indianapolis, and a factory in different places like that has also kind of changed the thinking in the industry. It's certainly not there yet, but there's potential for that to change in our business in the long term.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely interesting. And then not to mention the fact that, the market as a whole in terms of just, athleisure wear, which wasn't even a term, again, 22 years ago, wasn't even a term really 10 years ago for that matter.
It's that has a huge change. And again, yet another thing that accelerated through the pandemic, which was a positive for the businesses in our industry, is that people went from wearing suits, and if you worked for Brooks Brothers, it wasn't a good time, but if you were selling joggers or yoga pants, it was a great time, because that's what people are wearing around the house and at home. So that changed, but there are a lot of changes too that are just happening. You mentioned influencer marketing, and maybe when we talk a little bit further, we can get into the whole change with name, image, and likeness that's changed dramatically as well. Because I think it's something for marketers to think about, is like now you have this whole pool of influencers available at the college level.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Right. All the YouTubers out there and everybody else that's making a career out of being an influencer and really having a voice and leveraging that voice in the marketplace with their audience. It's incredible.
Yeah, it's absolutely fantastic. And with the the rules that changed, college athletes now can make money off of their own name, image, and likeness in a way that didn't exist even 1 year ago today. And that's a dramatic change. It's a great change for the athlete to actually be able to, I hate this word, but monetize their own name and all of that. But it's but it's also just fundamentally something that now marketers have available to them, and we certainly jumped on it and used it very quickly.
Yeah, exactly. Great. Well, I'm looking forward to the event. It's going to be a great conversation. We're going to have, I'm sure, a lot of questions from our audience as well, and we'll dive a little bit deeper into each of these topics. It's coming up on July the 13th, and it's at 8 a.m. Pacific time, West Coast time. So we'd love to have our audience join in and be able to engage in the conversation too. So thanks for sharing a little bit of insight about what you'll be talking about in 2 months in July. I look forward to seeing you then.